prompt I'm giving a response to is a prompt that asks, what role do you see rationalization playing with how we should understand our own lying? Example, you as a liar. In response to this prompt, I would say that rationalization plays a major role in how we can understand our own lying. I believe this because rationalization and justification seem to depend on how far a certain person will lie and what kind of lie they will tell. People do not want to admit that they are liars, so an easy way to avoid that burden is to rationalize and make excuses for their lies. The evidence for this thesis can be found in Houston's Spy the Lie selections, as well as Ariely's Golf and Cheating Ourselves and Testing the Simple Model for Rational Crime. In Houston's Spy the Lie selection, he begins the excerpt by talking about a man named Phil that was a chief secretary at the farm who had to deal with a case of someone stealing $40 from an employee's purse. Phil narrowed down the investigation to one possible suspect and confronted him. When confronted, the suspect tried to distract Phil with the fact that he had a trunk full of Bibles. Even though Phil knew to ignore that fact, Houston still brings up a fair point that supports my thesis. His point being that if Phil had happened to be a religiously devout man like the suspect, then maybe he would have rationalized the suspect's reason for lying about stealing the $40. Also, the man tried to justify his actions by trying to say that he was an overall good religious person. While in Ariely's works, his writings are mainly focused around people trying to rationalize their lying as well. Actually, for his experiments, how much someone steals or cheats depends on how much that person rationalizes the certain act. Also in his writing of golf, the same conclusion is found when professional golfer Bobby Jones accidentally kicks a twig that moves his ball. According to the rules of golf, he has to count that as a stroke, but most people tend to lie and dismiss the mistake as a whole. Jones could not bring it to himself to lie, so he did not attempt to cover up his actions with rationalization. Instead, he took it as a stroke and evidently lost the match. So the basis of most lies are about how much and what kind of rationalization people are able to come to for their actions. Fair is a notoriously difficult thing to determine, according to Ariely. So, some people rationalize differently than others, but many will still use rationalization as a crutch to lean onto for seeing a certain lie. I know these points of evidence support my thesis because they are prime examples in how much people rationalize their actions in general when it comes to lying. People always strive to appear the best possible way they can to the outside world. Someone who may critique my view on the influence of rationalization when it comes to lying might say that rationalization does not play that big of a role in lying. Their argument would be that it does not play that big of a role because sometimes people do not even have time to think before they lie. Some lies need to be made on the spot instead of being thought out. While that is true that sometimes we are not able to justify and make excuses for our lies if we were limited on time, rationalization still has a major role in lying as a whole. I know this for myself and probably for a majority of other people. If I lie, I usually feel guilty about it, so I try to reason with myself that I'm doing the right thing because someone's feelings will be spared or that everyone else is doing it, etc. We are only human, and humans will always try to explain that all their actions have a reasonable purpose, either to others, but mostly to themselves.